Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Donna Edwards, Training and Certification BDM at Amazon Web Services, and I'm super excited to welcome you to our Women in Tech panel live on Twitch. This panel is one of the value adds as part of our AWS She Builds CloudU program, which we run to encourage as many women as possible to get excited and interested about working in tech. We have two programs. Both are completely flexible, so you can study when it works for you and have the support of this awesome community, as well as AWS mentors to help. One of the programs takes you through the cloud practitioner training, so the fundamentals of the cloud over 8 weeks, and the other is for those with a tech background who want to go deeper and become an AWS certified solution architect over 14 weeks. Really excited to have a lot of you joining us on the program today. We also have people joining us from the wonderful She Dares program, which is a collaboration between AWS and the Dream Collective. And we are lucky to have Sarah joining us today from the Dream Collective. I will post the links in the chat at some point during this conversation today so that you can register your interest in the next program or join the current programs. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce this amazing panel of women in tech from different backgrounds, different roles, we're very privileged to be chatting to tonight. Starting with Anna. Anna Green leads Amazon Web Services, ISV and D&B teams across Asia Pacific and Japan. Her career focus has been to lead international business through complex cultural and transformational change, and has developed a deep understanding of the financial, regulatory and industry levers that facilitate success for businesses in that context. Prior to joining AWS, Anna was the CEO of Australian New Zealand Bank in the Philippines. And prior to that, she was CEO in Laos. I don't know if I said that correctly, Anna. I hope I did. Laos? I'm going to go with that.
Laos.
Lovely. She is a qualified lawyer, wow, and has practiced corporate law in top-tier firms in Sydney and London, served as a board director for several ANZ entities across ASEAN, and most recently held the role of director on the Bankers Association of the Philippines. Anna is a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion, has partnered with the UN, regulatory and government bodies, customers and business councils to build mechanisms to drive meaningful change around these issues. She holds a Bachelor of Law from the University of New South Wales, a Bachelor of Arts majoring political science from the Australian National University, and recently completed a Chief Executive Women's Scholarship at INSEAD, I-N-S-E-A-D. Don't know how you say that one either. Anna has lived and worked in Sydney, London and Vanuatu, Hong Kong, Laos, the Philippines, and now lives with her family in Singapore. Welcome from Singapore, Anna.
Thank you so much, Donna. That sounds like a much more impressive person than I feel like I am. I'm so happy to be on this call, and I'd like to say hello to all the women out there and everyone who's joined today. It's a very exciting opportunity for me to be able to join this conversation with this wonderful panel of women.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks for letting us rope you into this. One of the things that I know very well about Anna is she says yes to any type of diversity or inclusion conversation, and most weeks you'll hear her at least once or twice. It's pretty impressive. So I don't know how you make time, but thank you. Next up, we have Sarah Liu. Sarah is the founder and managing director of the Dream Collective, APAC's top 10 diversity and inclusion consultancy, helping organisations build best practice in diversity and inclusion across the globe. Sarah is an international thought leader, speaker and facilitator on gender equality, diversity and inclusion and the future of work. Having represented Australia in the G20 YEA since 2017, Sarah also served as an APAC advisor to the Japanese Prime Minister's Cabinet and sits on the judging panel for Forbes Awards. Sarah is invited to train leaders around the world across private and public sectors on leadership transformation and is an appointed member of the UTS Industry Advisory Board. While she manages a diverse portfolio of career and businesses, there is only one common thread across them all, and that is to see more women in leadership and to transform the way we work. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Donna, for having us. Thank you. And I'm so great to be actually sharing the panel session with Anna and Francis today as well. I'm really excited for the conversation to come, and a big warm welcome to everyone who's joined in.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We have Francis up next. Frances, who gave me a very short bio because she's very humble, and I'm sure it could expand much, much longer knowing you. So Frances Grunberg, aka Frank, was one of ANZ's earliest AWS employees and worked as a technical trainer, enabling customers across the region for many years. She's now a solutions architect, bringing her extensive knowledge of the AWS platform and customers to bear as part of the ANZ public sector team. She is the lead mentor on our She Builds CloudU Solution Architect program, helping hundreds of women learn AWS in a safe and fun community. Thank you so much, Frank.
Thank you. That's a wonderful warm welcome. And I am in awe of the panel today. And I'm also in awe of everyone who's joined. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. And we do have Vanessa joining us shortly, but she was running a little bit late. So I'm going to do her intro now as well. And that way, when she joins, she can just slot on into the conversation. So Vanessa has spent over 20 years at Accenture in technology consulting. Her career spans many industries and technologies, but more recently, she joined Accenture's cloud-first organization in the AWS practice, which is committed to helping clients on their journey to the cloud. This covers a range of activities from migrating anything our clients are looking for to cloud and application management, security, data analytics. Vanessa also leads the Accenture Technology Inclusion and Diversity team with a focus on gender equality and supporting women's careers in technology. She's very excited to be supporting the AWS She Builds CloudU Women initiative and seeing what everyone can achieve to help them fulfill their cloud careers. Big shout out to Vanessa and the team at Accenture for sponsoring the exam vouchers for our She Builds CloudU programs for both the Cloud Practitioner and the Solution Architect Associate, which is amazing and enables so many more women to get trained and to do their certification. So a big welcome to our panelists, and thank you so much for taking the time to join this conversation tonight. So I have a few questions that I'd like to kick off with for the panel, but then we'll go to the chat to select some questions later on. So if you do have questions, then please post them in the chat throughout the conversation, and I will keep an eye on it and select some questions for later on. If you do want to sign in and register for an account, you'll be able to track your name and your questions. Otherwise, I think you can post anonymous questions as well. And Vanessa, you just missed your lovely introduction, but welcome.
No, I heard it. Thank you, Donna. It was very good of you. You did a great job.
Oh, you just snuck on afterwards. Nice.
So good.
Excellent. Well, thank you again so much, and for all the support from Accenture as well. And so, seeing as you've just jumped on, we'll start with you. So I'd really love to hear about how your career got started. So I guess, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you think you'd be working in the tech industry?
Definitely not. So my career has taken many twists and turns, but the best story I can give you is this. My university degree was a manufacturing and engineering degree. I'm a very hands-on person. I did not enjoy spreadsheets, and I did not enjoy noughts and ones. I started my career very much in manufacturing, and actually one of my first jobs was a not so salubrious job in a pet food factory in country New South Wales. And so I've spent my time on the ground getting my hands dirty, and started my career thinking that that's what I wanted to do. And then I soon realized that actually, for all that was interesting, what was more interesting was the technology that we could use to improve what we did. And then I went on to more process engineering and improving the way things work. And then from there went into actually, well, technology can help do this even better again. And so then I got an interest in technology and how we can use technology to help improve the way we do our work. So long story short, I did not join the pet food factory. What I did was I joined Accenture. And yes, to your point in my introduction, that was a very long time ago. But what's been really nice about that is the way that technology has evolved and changed, and we continue to apply technology to all the many, many, many challenges that our clients have. And I suppose what's kept it interesting is not only the nature of the problems we've been solving, but the way the technology has evolved to be able to do that. So when I look at the work that we do now with, data analytics and AI, is really, really exciting. And all the underlying technology and architecture and components that go to make sure that we're able to bring the so what out of what we do, like data and analytics, I find really interesting and insightful. And so the principle hasn't changed. We're still solving problems, but how we're going about doing that now, I think, is really exciting. And the ability to do that with all the services that AWS has to offer is really, really mind-blowing. I mean, AWS has a service for everything, I've decided. There's something out there for everyone. You've thought of it. If you have a problem to solve, AWS has thought of it. And so, you know, part of that problem solving is bringing all of those components together. So the solutioning and the architecting bit of that. So tech is not, I mean, for all that tech is about using the technology, it's also about using it most effectively. I've been on many engagements where technology has gone horribly wrong, as well as where it's done really, you know, really served its purpose. So I think it's equally important to take the lessons learned from how to use technology well, and equally when technology perhaps is not the be all and end all. So it's a bit of a balance. But I think over the years, it's been nice to be able to dabble in all sorts of technology and be able to spend my time now working on, to your introduction, all the cloud components that we now get to share in. So that's my unusual
Fantastic
story.
That's a very diverse and interesting background. I love it though. I love the so what, always asking so what.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Anna, over to you next. I feel like with this group, we've got like tech, non-tech, tech, non-tech. It's quite a good mix. So over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Donna. Look, what I wanted to be when I grew up, the thing that I've learned in my time, in my career, is not so much that I want to do a particular job, but what I wanted to do was help people. It might sound strange, given the career journey that I have traversed, but that has always been my guiding principle. And that is the case whether or not it's helping my customers or my teams or the communities in which I operate. Like my driver as a person is helping the people around me in whatever way I can. So that was kind of what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I remember sitting on the log with my best friend talking about how, thinking, very early on, what do you want to do with your life? And I remember thinking, well, I guess I could be a lawyer. Like, that's one way to help people. And as we all do when we're at university, I had grand plans of working for the UN. And so because we wanted to save the world, and that's part of, the purpose agenda, I guess, that's very closely linked to me as a person. And part of what you said, Donna, I absolutely take it very seriously with respect to helping women in particular. And again, because I am one. So I know the challenges that I personally have faced. I've seen other women go through some really challenging situations. And so I take it really seriously that I've been given an opportunity to be a leader in an industry where there aren't a lot of women, and we have an opportunity to really kind of build and grow that base and ensure that the communities that we operate understand, and the customers that we build with, and indeed the teams that we build are diverse, because the best experiences that I've had in my career have been where we have a diverse cross-section of people working in my teams. So for me, the gender piece has always been a real driver. So what I wanted to be when I grew up was someone who helped other people. And I have found myself in different careers being able to do that in different ways. So as a lawyer, obviously, learning how to construct that from a technical perspective, through a contractual lens, through a project management lens. And then as the CEO of a bank, immediately I had an opportunity to really drive some really great transformational change for women and for diverse populations in those roles. And now as the leader of a tech business across Asia Pacific and Japan, I have that same context. I'm able to help. So what I wanted to be, and what I continue want to be is somebody who can help other people regardless of the context. So I know that's not probably not a conventional answer, but that's true to who I am.
Love it. I definitely feel very similar. It makes it very difficult when you're going for job interviews, though, and especially if you're talking to recruiters, because they don't understand. They don't understand that at all. They get very confused. What do you mean you don't know what role you want and what you want to be when you grow up? Frank, Absolutely. I'd love to hear from you.
I must admit, I never thought I'd be in tech. In high school, I wanted to be anything and everything. I went from, I want to be a vet to I want to be an architect. And by the end of high school, I really still didn't know. So I went out and got a job. And I found myself in the federal public service. And we were working on mainframes, and I found I had this amazing aptitude for it. And so everyone kept coming to me with problems. And that gave me an opportunity to kind of realize I actually hadn't used computers until I started working, but I could. Anytime IT staff came to a local office, I would literally follow them around and say, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? How does it work? And it was really taught by an amazing group of mentors. And that actually gave me the opportunity to move into a role into the IT department. So I then went through everything from help desk to systems administration. Then I moved into systems engineering, found myself working in the world of virtualization, thinking we're going to change the world. We are doing some amazing things with this technology. And years ago, I realized that's not really change. And that's when I literally stumbled over cloud and what cloud could do, and started trying to imagine the problems that we could solve with these services. And I must admit, that's when I put my hand up and went, I want to work for AWS. This is an amazing company with amazing solutions. All the problems I've been trying to solve for the last decade could have been solved with this technology. And so I must admit, it was never in my book that I was going to work in tech. It kind of happened.
That's such a great story. So what year, like how long have you been working for AWS? I couldn't find it anywhere. I stalked you, but I couldn't find it.
8 years.
Wow. Congrats. I must caveat, this is not an advertising panel for AWS. There's been a lot of lovely comments so far, but not an advertisement. So Sarah, we'll finish up with you. Tell us about your, what you wanted to be when you were young.
When I saw the question, I got so excited because I wanted to be so many things growing up. I actually wanted to be a news anchor, like, a TV reporter. And then because I loved horses, and I realized that jockey is actually an occupation, and I wanted to be a jockey. When I was in university, I actually ate competitively. So I used to be a competitive eater. And I realized that can actually be a profession as well. And then I wanted to be that. And then I saw so many different things. Basically, whatever that was visible to me, I thought that was a possibility. And so for me as well, I started my career, obviously, again, wanting to get into what seemed to be very glamorous, the marketing, the PR, branding side of things. And so I started my corporate career actually working in beauty marketing. And so it was through that experience, trying to sort of climb the corporate ladder, that I was personally confronted by the systemic barriers facing women in leadership. I personally experienced it, and I saw people around me experience it firsthand. So through that lived experience, then I became mission-led rather than job-led. And I think similar to Anna's comment, I wanted to actually solve a problem. I wanted to make sure that whatever I did was to actually help women get into more leadership roles. So with that, started, the Dream Collective, which now has become a global business, working with technology companies around the world to help them either attract or advance female talent. So I always think that the job or the method through which we do things will evolve and change, as the world changes. But it's really important to actually be focused around the mission, the purpose, and what problem you're trying to solve. And the job titles, can be really agnostic.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And I love what you said about visible, you follow what's visible. And I think, part of the reason for having these conversations today is role models. Role models are so important. I also chose my initial career based on a role model of my teacher. So I think really making sure that it's visible what women are doing in this space and how many different exciting jobs there are and how we can add value is so important. So moving to the current, keen to kind of hear a little bit more about what types of roles you're all in now, what you get to do on a day-to-day basis, and I guess kind of, the last few years leading up to now, what does that look like? And we'll start with Anna.
Cool, straight up. Straight off the block. Let's go. Right. So what am I doing now? Maybe I should give some reference to what I did before, which is that I was the CEO of a bank. And a lot of times I get questions from women and people generally, why would you move out of that into technology? And the answer for me is very simple. When I was working as the CEO of a bank, I was running an organization where my customers were every single day coming to me with their business models, and all I could see was the consistent theme around digital innovation, the fact that the businesses that were doing it well were able to succeed, and the ones that were struggling with it were not going to. So obviously, when you're looking at it from a banking perspective, you're understanding, what does that look like from a 3 to 5 year horizon, and then the opportunity for me to come to work at AWS and to build a segment from scratch, which is what I was being offered to do as part of my current job, was just too exciting for me not to take up, knowing what the future held. So even though there was a lot of risk involved in that change for me personally, professionally, it was just so exciting. The prospect and the opportunity of being able to be part of this organization that was building and growing the future, to Frances's point, to Sarah's point, to Vanessa's point, the future of what was going to be happening, not just in, we all kind of tend to think of our jobs sometimes in a very siloed way, but really what we're doing in technology is changing the face of business, changing the face of the world, changing the impact that technology can have on so many different things in our community. So, sorry, to answer your question, that's a very macro answer. But what I'm doing now is I'm building and running a segment. There's my mum in the background. I'm building and running a segment, which is a part of the AWS commercial business. And that segment right now is actually the SMB business. So what we're trying to do is understand and think about how small and medium businesses across Asia Pacific and Japan are thinking about their journey to the cloud. What do they need to do? Which customers have started the journey, which ones need help, how can we build services and processes that is really going to accelerate their migration so that businesses and the communities that they support can start to get the benefits from using cloud technology and all those amazing things that Frances is talking about, that Vanessa is talking about. That's what we want to be able to provide for our SMB customers. So that's where and so an average day for me is just getting my head around the enormity of that task and working with some pretty amazing people at AWS as we build that business for the future.
Just a little job.
17 million customers. So just when you put it that way, it's kind of hard. Yeah, when I say it's enormous, but it's also so exciting. If you think about it, like these are customers who, some of whom have thought about moving to the cloud, some of whom have just happily doing their business on premises, not really understanding how much their business can be changed by using digital technology models. So yeah, it's just such an exciting part of the business to be part of. So sorry to interrupt, Donna, but yeah, it is a huge job, and it's very exciting as well.
No problem. I think we could listen just to you all day. Back to you, Frank, while we're on the AWS train. Tell us a little bit about your role in your last few roles.
On my last few roles, I'll start with technical trainer, which I moved into in AWS about 8 years ago. And to me, it was one of the most phenomenal jobs. What really got me roped into it was the fact that through my journey in learning technology, I'd had some great mentors, but I'd never had a mentor that was like me. I'd never had a female mentor. And I thought to myself, as I look around, how many real female mentors are there in the IT industry? There really weren't many. And I'm a very shy, reserved, quiet person, and decided to put myself right out there at the front of a classroom every single day, teaching people how to build with AWS, because I thought it was just so important to have that visibility and be a mentor on that stage. And I did that for 5.5 years, and I loved it. It was one of the most rewarding jobs I have ever had. Then I found I could take those same skills and move into a solutions architect role. Now, I may not be at the front of a classroom every day. I may not be, out there with an audience, but I have a slightly different audience now. And what I'm doing is what I consider amplifying. I'm taking that technical knowledge and I'm applying it to my group of customers who are actually partners. So as they can learn how to build with AWS, they have a mentor, and they will then take that out to customers who will then be able to completely transform the way they're doing all of their business, what objectives they have, and growing.
So you like your job a little bit?
Love my job. I love it. It is so much fun.
Well, we like working with you. Vanessa, tell us a little bit about you and your roles.
Okay, I will start by saying that I think there's quite a broad spectrum of things that I could be involved in. So I will summarize it up like this. I think the key things that we're trying to do is obviously wear a delivery hat, which is the hat that we obviously wear when we're working with our clients and solving their problems. The other hat, though, obviously is just being able to sell those opportunities. And those two hats for me are actually quite different, and in some cases quite difficult. And by that I mean I'm probably not naturally both. I'm probably more on the delivery than I am on the sales. But what's interesting, though, is how you bring your different strengths to those areas of my role that are everything from identifying that opportunity to helping clients solution to that opportunity, and then being able to actually deliver and realize the value in that opportunity. And that brings quite a number of different skills at different times in that cycle that I draw on. And to my point about having sort of strengths and weaknesses, building that team around me to make sure I bring the right people to the right step in that process is really important. And so the team that we're building at Accenture and AWS is very much around having the right people to support the right steps in that process. So we have a mix of folks that I work with on a day-to-day basis, those that get up every morning and are just natural-born salespeople, to those who are technically really competent in seeing a problem and solutioning for it and just using technology in the most amazing ways, to people that are really good at just helping clients on that journey to understand the technology, understand how they're going to make best use of it in their organization, and helping them sell it across their organization. The change management aspect of this often needs investment and time, and to help our clients understand that the investment is absolutely the right thing to be doing, because in a lot of cases this is new. People haven't done it before. And so taking the time to really help them understand that they've made the right decision and how we're going to help them be successful in that, and then working together to achieve that, is really quite rewarding. So it's nice to come through that cycle, reflect back on that, and then be able to take a lot of those lessons learned and those insights and think about how you pay it forward. But the people I work with on any given day are all skills and all technical capabilities. We obviously have a team, everything from graduates right the way through to experienced hires that have had many, many years of experience. So bringing the right people together in the right teams, for me, is pretty key for our success. We're obviously a services company. We don't sell products, so our people are everything. And so for us, just the teaming is critical, and the diversity in that teaming is also critical. So that's a bit of an insight as to how I go about my day.
Yeah, fantastic. And it sounds like lots of variety of working with lots of different people.
Yeah.
I liked your comment around the strengths as well. When I remember when I learned about strengths-based leadership and understanding, how to build a team where everyone's working to their strengths. Oh my gosh, it was life-changing.
Yes.
Sarah, over to you. Lucky last.
Yeah, so I think probably similar to Vanessa, I really love variety in my day, but also like in my life. So I'm an entrepreneur by nature. I like to create, I love to innovate. And so if you think about like how that translates to my day-to-day, really, it entails from a business development perspective, doing discovery conversations with the client, really helping clients identify what their problem statement is. When they come to us and go, hey, we don't have enough women in leadership, rather than I think looking at it on a surface, we really help them deep dive into what is the root cause. And a lot of times, you realize that you're sometimes solving the wrong problem. So like that part, the discovery, the client conversation, I absolutely love. And with that, apply sort of my desire and appetite for creativity and innovation in creating solutions that will help them address that problem statement. And then all the way through to sort of execution and implementation, because, I think it's sort of having worked so long, I realized that having a beautiful, amazing strategy is one thing, but if it's not backed up by also equally beautiful and amazing execution, is not effective. So actually supporting my team around the execution and implementation of projects, all the way to measuring impact and success, and demonstrating, what we've achieved. Because at the end of the day, I think having that focus on results and the impact we're achieving is absolutely core, especially if you are in a role and in a job or in an organization that's very purpose and very mission led. So that sort of, I suppose, sums it up, what my day-to-day look like. So a lot of variety is actually all about doing something I've never done before.
Fantastic. Love it. And I might get you to help me with introing this question, because one of the working in tech has mixed reviews in terms of being a woman in the industry. And one of the reasons that we collaborated on the She Does program was because of some of those statistics. And I don't know if you remember any off the top of your head, but I know the research that you did as part of the Dream Collective was a very large percentage of women that didn't see the tech industry as attractive, or they saw it as daunting. I don't know if you remember the stat off the top of your head.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So before we create any sort of programs or learning experiences, we want to make sure it's very insight driven and data backed. So we actually conducted a qualitative and quantitative research to help really identify what's standing between the way of women and technology career. And what we uncovered were a couple of key things. One is that they don't actually feel that their skills aligns. So they feel that if I didn't have an engineering degree, what I've acquired so far in my career wouldn't necessarily apply in the tech sector. And then over 90% actually feels that if they have to paint a picture of the tech industry, is a group of bunch of guys in hoodies on a skateboard. That was literally the word for word that came out of the focus group. And once again, goes to show the importance of what people can see, the visibility of what working in tech looks like. So as a result, they're self-opting out. And then also it's actually about a lot of preconceived idea about the roles that are actually available in technology. Solution architect, data scientist, software engineer, but beyond that, there are so many. In fact, we know through research, 43% of the job that's actually currently advertised are not technical roles. So I think just a lot of those insights, once you share with women, they're like, it creates a huge aha moment. And that was the impact of the She Dares program, because it's targeted for women with a non-tech background. And so once they step into that, it opens up a whole world of possibility for them and actually paves the way for transition into the technology sector.
Thank you so much. That was not planned at all. I appreciate it. So, and this leads into my question. So I really want to understand, what you all personally enjoy about working in the tech industry. I think it's important that we share that. And also what you see as some of the challenges and the opportunities as a woman in the tech industry. Frank, let's start with you.
If I can find my mute button. What do I enjoy about the tech industry? Well, there's two parts to that. One, I have bright, shiny object syndrome, which means when there's new tech, I cannot help myself. I have to go and play with it. I'm really driven to do that. And I know that's just the way my brain works. And that's probably one of the reasons why I love AWS, because there's always something new. But the other part of working in the tech industry is the people. It is one of the most amazing and collaborative environments. I get to work with incredibly creative, intelligent, innovative people every single day. And they challenge me to always just keep raising my own bar as to what I can do. Definitely more about the people than the bright, shiny objects. The other parts of the questions, challenges.
I have to stop you there, Francis. I have to stop you. You need to show us your bright, shiny object.
Oh, this is my bright, shiny object. This is my flashing unicorn.
The actual bright, shiny object. It's literal and physical. It's so cool.
Absolutely. Everyone needs a flashing unicorn.
I would show you my unicorn tattoo, but I'd have to take off too many clothes.
Francis, you need to let all of us know where you got that unicorn from.
The problem is, once I bought it, I went to go and buy a box of them to give away, and they're all gone. They're all sold out. But believe me, I look every 6 months or so, I do a quick search if I can find more flashing unicorns. I think I was about to talk about challenges. I'd say the biggest challenges I've had in my career is myself. Doubting that I can go to that next step, looking at a new role and saying to myself, well, I've got about 60%, 70% of what I think you need. So I need to go and work more and do better to try and push myself up there. And I have learnt over the years that you shouldn't doubt yourself. You should put your hand up. You should push yourself. If there's something you're really interested in doing, go and talk to people in that role. Go get their impression and opinions, and lose some of that self-doubt. Gain a little bit of confidence in you can do this. I love the she dares. I think that is brilliant, and I think we should be wearing that every day.
Thank you, Frank. Vanessa.
I'm not sure how to top that one. All right. So what do I enjoy? I enjoy the challenge. So I think, if you want to be constantly challenging yourself and thinking about how to really not only learn from a personal development perspective, but also then give that back to your teams and to your clients, I think it's really nice to be able over the years to be able to think about your job, not just a job that I do because I go to work to do my job, but have the confidence that says, not only can I do my job, but I can help others be more successful in theirs. And that's not even a tech industry thing necessarily, but it is about helping others with whatever it is they're trying to learn and grow in. And one of the things I would say is that learning the tech skills is really important. Getting certifications is very helpful, but there's the softer side of your development that I would also make sure you take time out to invest in, just to round out your overall experiences and your ability to just continue to learn and grow. And the opportunity, I think, for women in tech is honestly endless. There is no reason why anyone should think that there are any boundaries in the opportunities or the challenges or the ability to get engaged in tech, or at least I can honestly say there has not been any reason why anybody hasn't been considered on their merits. And having said that, what is also important is the ability to, ask for help and seek advice and continue to get the support you need, back to my point before, in the areas that personally you need to be able to have support so that together as a team, you have all the skills you need. And so I think if we can, just keep an eye out for others, be empathetic, be sympathetic, particularly in these times. And I apologize for the fact that my kids have been in and out in the last 10 minutes, but it's dinner time in my house. And so, just being able to support each other in whatever it is that's going on in people's lives at the moment, COVID or otherwise, there is a lot happening. And so it's really nice to be able to have the support and backing of your teams and your company and your clients to be able to bring the best of you to that opportunity. So I think there's two parts to this. The tech bit, which is, great that we're all building our skills in tech, and that's the thing that we're excited about. And also the personal aspect of this and just bringing your whole true self, I think, is what I've been able to do in tech.
Love it. And Anna, I'm sure you don't have much to say on this question.
I think it's all been said. So I was just trying to think of how to add something that's valuable and interesting. And one of the things that I found, again, to your point, Vanessa, being authentic, is just sharing stories. So, moving across from banking, which to be the CEO of a bank, to be quite frank with you, is one of the most interesting jobs you can do. You have a cross section of customers against a cross section of industries doing a cross section of amazing stuff. And they're coming to you to try to fund that. So, that can go across various different lenses. But I tell you what, moving into technology, so we have someone, so to your point, Frank, on bright, shiny objects, we have customers in the ISV space who are building on our platform solutions to help to fight to help scientists to create solutions for COVID. We have customers who are using artificial intelligence and machine learning to create avatars that can help doctors who don't have enough time to do triage, and they're creating programs of work that can speak directly to clients, to people in the community who need help to resolve medical problems. I mean, if you think about the most immediate problems that our society is facing right now, those things are being solved by technology. And so when you ask me what I enjoy about working in the tech industry, it's hearing about the absolutely amazing things that customers are doing with technology. And it just, to your point, again, I'm not a tech expert. I am very proud of the fact that I finished Turbo Pascal 5.0 programming in year 12. But in terms of certifications, I'm no expert. But what I do know is that a common sense application of business skills in a technology context is absolutely valuable. So what I would say to the women out there right now is, just because you're not working in technology doesn't mean that the application of your skill set is not applicable in a technology context. Think about it. All of the technology businesses are going to need project management skills 101. People who can run relationships 101, people who understand about analysis of data and accounts 101. So just because you don't have a coding certification doesn't mean you can't build a really interesting career in technology. And I would argue an even more interesting career in technology than in other industries. And certainly that's been my experience. So what I love about the tech industry is that every single day I'm learning more about how the world is evolving using technology, and it's only going to get bigger and more exciting. So it's a great place to be. The challenges are exactly what all the other speakers have spoken about. Women, by default, speak to only the skills that they do with only the job that they've done in the past. And what I would encourage, I'm someone, again, trying to be self-aware about who I am and the journey I've taken. I'm someone who probably has a higher degree of risk than most. Most people don't have the propensity to take their two children at the ages of 3 and 5 to a developing country with no medical, and then, just try and learn from scratch how to run a bank. That's a different profile. I recognize that, but you don't have to do that to move sideways. You don't have to take those sort of risks. You can simply say, okay, this job gives me an opportunity to be exposed to something new and different. I can use my current skill set. I can see how I can apply it. Maybe I don't have 100% of the skills, but I've got 70, and I can back myself on the other 30. So I would say that the challenges that women have in a lot of instances when I've seen it have been, and again, I'm not blaming women. I hate it when that conversation is happening. It's just something that I myself have noticed about myself, and I see it in other women who I see are so capable, and I just want them to step up, and they often feel worried about not having the skills. And so I just encourage women to think differently about the skills that they already have and applying them to different roles, and pushing back. And certainly if you find an HR person who says, oh, yeah, but you haven't had 5 years experience, just think differently about that problem statement and try and cast it in a different light. You may not have had 5 years experience, but maybe you've had 1 and you've had 3 that's complementary. Like, think differently about your work experience and take risks and back yourself. Women, you are all just as capable as your male colleagues.
I really want to I think just dig deeper on that, because that's precisely the insight that we got from our research as well, that very often the challenge identified by women is actually an opportunity as well. The fact you think, I come from such a different background, it means you offer fresh perspective. The fact you talk about, I don't talk tech, I'm not technical enough. In fact, that's an opportunity, because that means you can actually translate the tech capabilities through human language. You can actually sell the technology because customers now understand. So that's what we call the outsider advantage, and a big thing that we actually talk through into the She Dares as well. So I would really encourage everyone who's tuning in, every time, I think flip it around. Every time you see a challenge, what that presents is actually an opportunity, right on the other side.
Yeah, 100%. I was actually going to throw back to you anyway, Sarah, because, I think you're hard pressed now to find a company that isn't in the tech industry or becoming a tech company. Actually, the majority of companies are moving into that space. They have to. So, you're obviously working with so many different types of companies in that boat, and also a lot of women as well. So, keen to hear. It was good to hear those perspectives. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add, or if that was everything.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Actually, I just got so excited because I think, once again, it's a bit of a mindset shift. All of a sudden, we are now articulating what we once thought was a disadvantage, something we're trying to hide or cover. We're communicating that with strength, and I just think that's so powerful. And I think really challenge people who you're interviewing with or having career conversation with, to challenge them to actually think the same as well. And I think that's really what excites me the most about working in the tech industry right now, because having women in the industry means that there's representation. And I think, once again, a big insight we got from research was that meritocracy was so important for women, and women don't want to feel that they are just a number, a diversity target, that got selected or got their job as a result of that. And I'm here to tell you that you're not. The fact that your voice is part of it means that diverse needs, diverse considerations and thoughts are being considered and are being factored into how products and experiences are designed. So, you absolutely have every right to be there. And I really sort of encourage even people with a non-technical background or who have been in different sectors to actually see this as an opportunity to transition and to pivot.
Which leads us on to our next question perfectly. Really, we know that we need to increase the role models of women in the leadership space. So I wanted to kind of touch on leadership and career progression, and get some advice from you all on women looking to pivot their careers or pivot their job role or progress their careers in general. So keen just to get some advice and hear some of your tips. So maybe Vanessa.
Okay, so I think in one way, shape or form, you're probably going to engage in tech throughout your career. And it really just comes down to how much do you want to have your career be focused around tech. And some of that will evolve naturally over time, and it will just become of interest, or there's areas of tech that you'll find perhaps more interesting than others. And so as you go through your career, I'd suggest be open to many and varied roles throughout your career. Don't perhaps jump to conclusions about what you think certain roles might be, or the certain types of skills that you might get or people you might engage with, because roles that I have had explained to me and then actually gone and been involved in have turned out to be very different. So I think my suggestion would be have an open mind when it comes to taking on jobs in tech, because you really don't know what they might end up being involved in, what you might learn, and then equally things you might uncover about yourself or about your interests, and also the people that you just meet along the way. So I think keep an open mind when it comes to tech, because it's just changing so much. But what you will do over the years is build a really important network. And that network that you build throughout your career will be what will make other opportunities available to you as you go throughout life and throughout your career. So the progress through your career yes, it's important to have that technical skill, but really it's also important just to have that network. And that's why opportunities like this one are really important. And I'd encourage you not just to do the training to get the cert, but to take the opportunity here to really build out a network of like-minded women in tech, and take that with you into whatever you choose to do next.
Fantastic. Anna.
So I'm a pretty good case in point of somebody who has been willing to take risks, as I said. And so my advice for women who want to pivot their careers is to take risks in a way that aligns with your own personal risk profile. So I do understand that it's not for everyone to move out of a job in accounting straight into, a technically, and indeed probably wouldn't be possible because you wouldn't have the technical competencies to be able to do that job. But you can, for instance, move into an accountancy role within a tech organization. You can look at changing the vertical industry context of the job that you're doing so that you're looking at a technology lens. So I would just reiterate what I said earlier, which is think about the skills that you have as transferable. And to Sarah's point, if you are interested in a job in another industry, don't take no for an answer from HR, because sometimes that can be a real blocker. And I find that so many women reach out to me and they say, well, I've tried, but I'm just getting nothing. And I totally understand that. It's really disheartening, but don't let it get to you. Like that is not a reflection on your ability. It's a reflection on that organization's inability to see the opportunity. And I can tell you that these days things are really changing for women in technology, and organizations like AWS and others are taking risks on, or perceived risks on, looking at different profiles. So continue to try, think differently about the roles that you might be able to apply with the skills that you have. Look for things that are transferable, like, for instance, program management roles. Those are type of skills that you would have, say, for instance, if you were in a program management role in an industrial vertical, you can apply that thinking and that reasoning to a technology context in exactly the same way. So it's really just about how creative you can be with the skills that you have. And then looking at jobs that you maybe ordinarily wouldn't look at, and then ask yourself, maybe I could, and then, even then, if you get an interview, go for it. Use it as a way to learn. Use it as a way to build your experience. Like, don't feel disheartened by getting through an interview and then finding that you don't have the right skill set. That's another thing that women often take very personally, and they shouldn't. I can tell you, because I spend years interviewing, and the differences I see in the way that men and women interview, the way that they take feedback, the way that they articulate that in the strategy for their own careers. Women take it very personally if they don't get a job offer, and you shouldn't. There are so many jobs. You should use it as an adventure and an experience to get excited about what comes next. And the more that you do it, hopefully the more that you'll find you'll be able to articulate your own story much better. And that's really important. So as I said, don't be disheartened. Apply for jobs that you wouldn't normally apply for. Think differently about your skill set, and do consider jobs in technology.
Love it. Sarah, over to you. I'm going to end this one with Frank, because I've got an audience question, Frank, that I think you're going to love. So Sarah is up next.
Great. So I think probably 3 key points. One is especially when you're looking to pivot or progress your career, focus on building a strategic network. And I really want to talk to that point, because I have heard a lot of women who feels that that's sort of almost like a shortcut, and sort of see networking in a somewhat negative light. And I think just some really salient stats would tell us that I think, over 78% of job ads or job opportunities are actually not advertised publicly. So, I think it's really important to understand that, network is actually an opportunity just to access simply different opportunities. So it's important to see that in a positive light and utilize that to your advantage. So the second thing I think is tell your story, not bottom up, but top down. So don't tell your story, focus around, X number of years working in this role, titled this. focus on the impact and the results you achieve, those that you're achieving. Have I, managed a project, to a certain client satisfaction? Have I closed deals of the X value? Demonstrates that, when you're especially trying to pivot, and that's much more powerful than trying to communicate your story in a bottom-down manner. And then the last thing, I suppose, is eat rejection for breakfast. And I think it's so important to know that you will, when you're trying to pivot, especially I feel, in Australia particularly so, that recruiters and, hiring managers tend to sort of box you in a little bit more. If you haven't done this exact same job for the past 7 years, then I'm not going to sort of hire you. I think, yes, that is changing, but you will come across people who are like that. And so don't be disheartened by that. I myself, when I tried to move from an agency background into an in-house beauty marketing role, I was told by 7 recruiters that I would never be successful. But I did. So I think a lot of times impossible is an opinion, but it's not a fact. So remember that and eat rejection for breakfast. It will only make you stronger.
I want to record that and bottle that up and just replay it all the time. That's amazing. I love it. Frank.
What advice would I give? Never stop learning. Never, because you never know what you're going to find out about yourself and where you want to go. I've always said that some of my favourite people in the world at the age of 40 still don't know what they want to be when they grow up. They're still trying to find out. And we should experience it all. We need to just keep learning and finding what captures our interests. What can we do with that? How can we change the world with that? And so learn, but at the same time, be kind to yourself. We might set ourselves goals to say, I want to achieve this, I want to learn this particular skill, or I want to get this certification. If I don't do it in a certain time frame, get disheartened. No, be kind to yourself. Life is still there. It doesn't stop just because you put a goal in front of yourself. Be persistent and you will get there.
Love it. Such great advice. Be kind to yourself. It's another one. We'll have to bottle that one up too. So we've got some audience questions coming through now. So really keen to ask a couple of those. The first one being, which roles in AWS/training would you suggest for someone with sales, business development, marketing experience? So I think, the question is which roles and what type of training should someone do potentially? So Frank, do you want to take that one?
This one is really wonderful. Great question. There are so many tech roles where we need what we call cloud fluency, understanding the lingo and the jargon, and often being that person navigating technical teams to non-technical teams. And so in AWS, very specifically, we've put together what's known as the AWS Cloud Practitioner course, which has an associated certification. And it's one that I thoroughly recommend. Anyone in any role in IT should really start with that. It's not deeply technical, but it certainly gives you a very, very strong cloud fluency.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add? Because there's a question about, Vanessa, from an Accenture perspective, is there any, kind of, I guess, pathways into these types of roles? I assume that's kind of part of the question. How do you get into these types of roles?
Okay, well, I mean, we look at a wide, I'll spit out the word, variety of skills and capabilities. So to my point before about just investing in your whole self from a training perspective, and yes, it's important to have the technology skills and capabilities and certs to back that up. But I think it's also about the person. To my point at the beginning about the variety of roles that we ask people to get involved in, I think it's equally important to be able to demonstrate just the depth and breadth of who you are. And that will open up a whole lot of additional opportunities. So I think that's a vague answer to the question. I'm aware of that, but I don't particularly want to pigeonhole it and say, well, you have to have done a certain number of years of a certain type of training or a certain type of role or a certain type of industry, because I think what's nice is the variety that you can bring to your story makes you actually more attractive, as long as you've got that solid foundation in tech, which you might build up over a couple of years. But then short of that, I think it's the variety of skills and experience and stories that you can bring about your career that you can then pay that forward into your next opportunity that I think makes you a valued team member.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
I
Anna?
would just add to that, like, again, just first basics. You don't have to, just keep it simple. Which roles in AWS and training would you suggest for someone with sales, business development, and marketing experience? I would suggest a sales role, a business development role, or a marketing role. And I'm not being trite when I say that. Those skills are transferable. If you have done a sales role in an organization that is not tech, you will apply the same methodology, thinking, problem solving as you would if you did it in a technology role. So to Francis's point, it's a very good idea if you would want to work in an organization like AWS to get a cloud certification, which again doesn't take, I'm not going to suggest that it's not very, a deeply important technical certification that does take some time and commitment on behalf of the individual, but it's possible to do it without being a technical guru. So again, you don't have to over bake it. If it's a sales role and you've done sales in the past, you are likely to have the skill set to be able to apply it. What would really differentiate you if you're coming from an outside a different industry is to be able to apply what you believe to be the maxims for that business, or the business that you're applying to the role that you're applying to. So if you're interested in a role in cloud sales, do some cloud certification. And then you are carrying an interest and a learn and be curious mindset that I think most employers would be impressed by. So yeah, I would just say if it's in your title now, it's likely to be similar to what you would be doing at AWS.
I think you're on mute, Donna.
I'm going to do it, right? So then I had to do it. You're welcome. Oh my goodness. So another audience question. For a computer science student in their second year, how should I prepare myself for the industry? Open to anyone that would like to answer that one.
So I've seen, I would just say internships are a great way to get to know AWS. There's lots of opportunities to do that, not just AWS, but all the large, and I'm sure Accenture has the same thing. Really good way to get a sense of what it might be like to work in AWS. But believe me, it's not the only way. There are lots of contractors who do work with AWS. There are lots of backfill positions that you can apply for. There are temp opportunities that would allow you to do work in technology. Do not be disheartened if you don't get an internship. This is, again, one of the I wish someone had told me this when I was a law student, obviously, but when I was at law school, the most important thing for all of us was to get a graduate placement at a law firm. And if you didn't get one, you spent the rest of your career feeling like, or at least the next 2 years, feeling like you're a failure. But nobody said, hang on, there's all these people working in these organizations. You don't have to be an intern to be able to get experience working in a technology firm. There are lots of ways. So, and I'm sure that Sarah and Vanessa and Frank can speak to that. But I like to just come straight out and say that internships are wonderful. We love interns at AWS. They are amazing. But it's not the only way to get experience working in tech.
Yeah, I concur. I mean, I think if you can get some experience, it's always helpful. Think differently. Start your own startup in the garage. Just play around with tech. Just have some fun with it, right? To Anna's point, it doesn't have to be the traditional way that you think is the stereotype of how you get into tech. In fact, the story on your CV that is the unconventional one is going to stand out. So that's not to say you don't need to have the basics and the foundations, but there's many ways you can dabble in tech and show people your passion and interest and excitement and have that be the story rather than some of the more traditional means of getting started.
I'd like to add a little thing to that as well. I'd say don't just focus on tech. Focus on other skills, personal skills, communication skills, negotiation skills, writing skills. There are so many of those other skills that a lot of people in tech have to learn later in life and kick themselves and say, I should have done more of that earlier.
I was actually noting down exactly the same thing. And I think particularly, I think what we call that sort of entry point into a professional life, one, again, like build a strategic network, creating relationship with the people, right? How are you establishing connections into the industry? People who occupy roles that you might be interested in or who work in the sector, have conversation with them, get learnings, right? So network. And then the other thing I'll say is actually people, like working in any industry is actually about working with people. So how are you building your people skills? How are you thriving in a team environment? How are you communicating with stakeholders? All of that are super important, and very often is the key determinant on what kind of opportunities actually will come your way.
Yeah, I love that. I'd made a note as well around networks. Networks are just so important. There's lots of, every industry has a whole bunch of free meetup type events that you can join and go to. It's a really important way. And there's lots of virtual meetups now as well in this new COVID world. But building that network, meeting people who are working in similar roles to what you want to get into, working in the companies you want to get into, getting a referral into a company is always a really good leg up for a role. So networks are really important, and also projects as well. So one of the things that I always look for when looking at CVs is what projects as part of university have you gone and done, or side project or side businesses, like we were saying about startups. So I think making sure that you, as Sarah was saying earlier, impact. What was the impact you had? What did you create? What did you do? Thinking about those stories are really important. And also mentors and sponsors. So, do you get yourself a mentor? If you're in a company, I think for the question before, who's your sponsor? Look for a project, a sponsor to help you get that next role. So I want to finish up with a important question. What do you wish that you knew 10 years or so ago that really would have helped you in your career and life to date? I'd love to share some tips to the audience, and we're going to start with Vanessa.
So many things. So many things I wish I knew 10 years ago. Look, there are some very simple ones, right? And the simplest one is just back yourself. I think as women, we tend to think that we need everything to be, I'll say, nearly perfect and understood and have that sense of certainty. And I'd suggest that in the nicest possible way, our male colleagues don't consider that a barrier at all and really don't even think about it. And frankly, just step in, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And they go, meh, okay. And they go and step into the next thing. And so, just getting rid of that self-doubt, getting rid of that judgment, getting rid of that what if this happens, and just believing in yourself and your capability. And I think it is important to build that resilience, because of course things won't go the way you intended them, some for better, some perhaps in ways that you could never have foreseen. But those skills that give you that mental strength and that encouragement of yourself, that give you the confidence, I think is really important. And just being able to have the support network around you would be my second comment. Build a support network. So have personal belief, build that support network of the people that will remind you of the qualities and the skills and the things that you bring that are valued, that you might lose sight of from time to time. And then they're the ones that just keep pushing you forward and are there for you and have you back, both professionally and personally, I think is important as well. It's not just all about at work either. But having that support in a non-work context is also really important. And so back to my comment about building that network, right? Really, really key to do as early as possible. And then just don't say no to anything would be my third, and there's so many, but that'll be my third one, because you just don't know where it's going to take you. And I think what's nice about that is it's just the excitement of it. It's the wonder of it. And then it's also on the reflection, just take the time to reflect. We all get caught up in the day-to-day. We all get caught up on this many meetings and this deliverable and this thing due by Friday and whatever. But how many of us on the week can actually stop and reflect on, for all that I put in the hard yards, the successes, your team's successes, your organization's successes, because that really helps you then invest in the next week, which has been just as busy and hard as the last week. And so taking that time, and it doesn't have to be formal. There's lots of ways you can recognize and thank and acknowledge the great efforts people do. But I think that's just a nice little way to keep everyone engaged and connected and motivated, because we're all busy in all sorts of ways. But that all has to be meaningful. Otherwise, why would we get up and do it every day? So yes.
So when is your book coming out?
Yeah, definitely don't have time for one of them.
I would buy it. Frank, over to you.
I'd say my one piece of advice that I should have known a decade ago would be fear, anxiety, and nerves shouldn't be something that blocks you. And we often treat it that way. If something seems a bit scary, I'm going to back away and go back to what I'm used to and comfortable with. I can tell you, when I was doing training, every morning I woke up and I had butterflies in my stomach. I did not want to get out there and speak in front of those large groups. Then I got marched out on stage at Sydney Summit and thought, oh no, I'm going to fall over. This isn't happening. But what I learned out of that is that those butterflies, that nervousness, that anxiety, was I cared. And I use that energy and I put that into my presentation. And I use that today, everything I do. If I'm feeling anxious or scared about something, I take that energy and I put in double the effort and I push through that. And that'd be my advice.
Love it. It took me 4 years of Toastmasters before I could get up and speak at a conference, and it still scares me to death. But apparently it's excitement, not nerves now. So every time I get up, I go, no, I'm excited. I'm not nervous. I'm excited. Sarah, over to you.
I think probably 3 key things. Number 1, don't overthink and don't overcomplicate. I think sometimes the older and the more mature and the more experiences that we accumulate, the more we tend to overthink and overcomplicate things. A lot of times it's actually quite simple. Start small, don't overcomplicate it, and don't overthink things. It's not personal. Whatever that happens, just move on. Second one is probably to seek out diversity. And that's something that I wasn't necessarily conscious of before, really until recent years after I started working in the diversity space. I realized that I shouldn't actually just hang out with people who are like me, and I need to actually intentionally seek out people who are different, because that's actually, that intersection is when innovation happens. It's through debate with people who I fundamentally disagree with that spark new ideas. So I think it's not necessarily advice that we get. I think it's you learn through lived experience, but I really want to encourage all of you to be intentional in seeking out diversity in experiences and diversity in the people that you hang out with. Third and the last one is don't play by the rule book, because quite frankly, there are so many rule books out there. Before it's make sure you hustle. Now is make sure you don't hustle. It's you have to meditate. No, you have to go for a run. It's actually all these different things that society generates to tell you sort of what rule book to play by. And I think just pick out the advices that's relevant for you and know that your needs can be different. Don't feel that you necessarily need to play by the rule book. All this rule book tells me that our CEOs need to get up at 5:30 in the morning, go for a run and be back and drink green juice. I don't do any of that. And don't feel bad. And, it's okay that you can carve out your own path. So that would be probably what I wish I had known earlier.
Thank you, Sarah. And Anna, did they leave anything for you?
Yeah, look, mine's probably a little bit more personal to me, knowing who I am as a person and how I've changed individually. And it's also something that I sometimes think women don't like hearing because it's so counter to all of us. You don't have to be liked to be successful. And indeed, if that's what you're trying to do, you may end up shooting yourself in the foot. What you need is respect. You need respect and integrity. And that has been something that I've learned over the course of my executive career. That doesn't mean that I'm not authentic and that I'm not a nice person. It just means that I can have an opinion without needing everyone in the room to agree with me. And that's okay. I don't mind if they don't, but I have my own view and that's okay. And that kind of level of confidence in your own sense of not righteousness, but backing yourself, to Sarah's point, is something that I've learned over time. It's with experience, but I find that women so often feel it's necessary to be liked by everyone in the room that they end up losing their own voice, which to me is a shame. So yeah, what I would say is lead with respect and integrity. Don't lead with a requirement for everybody to like you and agree with what you're saying, because it's never going to happen. Just feel confident that your position is, you are coming from a position of experience. Obviously, you don't have to talk about everything all the time, but if you have a viewpoint, feel confident enough that you're coming from a place of integrity and you're communicating with the intention to help. And be respectful always. But yeah, you don't have to be liked by everyone to do a good job.
Love it. Huge thank you. We are going to wrap it there. I want to just give a few shout outs and next steps. Thank you to everybody that has tuned in to watch, and thank you for the questions and the comments. There was some really great comments coming through on the chat. I couldn't, unfortunately, type any comments in. It wouldn't let me, but I wanted to, so thank you. Shout out to Derek Bingham, who's our fabulous Twitch producer hiding in the background today. Thank you, Derek. Another shout out to Vanessa and the Accenture team for sponsoring the She Builds programs. It'd be much harder for these to happen if we didn't have fantastic sponsors like Accenture, and no doubt they're hiring, so check out their careers page if you are looking. The next She Builds programs are live, and I think Derek posted the links in the chat if you want to share with your colleagues and networks and register, and the She Does program as well, link was posted on the channel, which is available immediately. And so finally, huge shout out again to this amazing panel. Thank you so much, Anna, Frank, Sarah, and Vanessa, for sharing your insights this evening. We'll see you all again soon.
Great job, Donna. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Donna. Thanks, everyone.